Good morning, and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. I trust that you are well today. Hope that you enjoyed the program from yesterday, my interview with my friend Francie Dupree about education and moving kids from high school to post-secondary education and some of the things that parents don't know and people to contact within your school and school system to make sure that you're making the right choice. So many times people get bad information or run on information that they think is true and find out in the middle of it that it's not true, or at the worst at the end of it and find out that it's a disaster, and now you're a barista instead of a barrister, and you really should be a barrister, not a barista. We talk about all that. So if you haven't seen that video, you can go ahead and I think if I remember how, I'll put a card up, and that way you can click on the card up there, and you can go right to that video, and then come back here. All right. Any case, got lots to talk about today. Supposedly, President Trump is going to be indicted today and then arraigned next week. Means that the indictment will come down, the charges will come down, and then he'll go to New York next week after his lawyers and Secret Service and all of those people get their act together. How crazy is it that there's a chance of a president who is still getting Secret Service protection being indicted by the state of New York over something that happened, I don't know, 9 years ago, 8 years ago? Crazy, isn't it? All right, we'll be back with more of the program right after these messages. Well, hey everybody, my name is Willie Lawson, and you guys know that I do a lot of stuff on the internet. And you may think with what's happening on Twitter and what's happening on Facebook and what happened to Parler that the mainstream social media sources are really trying to rid themselves of conservative voices. And you'd be right. They most certainly are. But you know what? It isn't as bad as you think it is. It's worse. But there are people who are willing to be platformed for free speech. One of those places is freedomforum.website. Freedomforum.website. You can go there and speak your mind. So come join us. Enjoy the freedom. Enjoy the fun. If you are a true blue conservative, small businesses are near and dear to your heart. They are the lifeblood of our life and economy. I believe this, and that's why my florist is not a website or phone number. My florist is Blooming Days Flower Shop, Tampa's premier flower shop. At 11618 North Florida Avenue here in Tampa, Florida, and at 6835 State Road 54 in Newport Richey. Call Christine at 813-933-1942 and at 727-232-6900. She can also be reached on the web at www.bloomingdays.com. One of the things that I get asked most is where can I get information that is not tainted with liberal bias, especially here in the Tampa Bay area. Well, now I have the answer. tbctampa.com, a website by and for Tampa area conservatives. Tampa's leading conservative voices speak freely at tbctampa.com, and you can too. So join the fun and enjoy the freedom at tbctampa.com. My name is Willie Lawson, and this is the Morning Report. Again, welcome back to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. On the Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. We appreciate you being here. The news Monday was, or this weekend, that President Trump was going to be indicted yesterday, and the New York City police had gotten their all their act together and all their assets together to make sure that nothing terrible happened and nothing like January 6th was happen again. But I think a lot of people are frankly smarter than they were then. I think cooler heads are prevailing, and so what happened yesterday was a few dozen supporters of President Trump rallied on Bingham Island, and that's just outside of Mar-a-Lago here in Florida, on the day he was going to be indicted and arrested by order of the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Most of the supporters who spoke with Town Hall, who did this report, said they were disappointed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis's statement he made on Monday. Now, the statement that he made on Monday was, he said, I don't know what goes into paying a porn star for hush money and alleged affair, but what he did say that Bragg was wrong because he was using his office for political reasons, not justice. Here's a quote. I won't be involved in this. I have no interest in getting involved with some type of manufactured circus by some Soros DA. Okay, he's trying to do a political spectacle. He's trying to virtue signal for his base. I've got real issues. I've got a deal with here in the state of Florida. DeSantis continued. I've got to spend my time on issues that actually matter to people. Now, there are people who said that they were disappointed in the governor. For what? Hey, listen, Donald Trump, grown ass man, as we like to say here in the hood. Donald Trump, grown ass man, does not need Ron DeSantis to come to his aid. He already said, hey, listen, what Bragg is doing is wrong. Bragg is backed by Soros. All the stuff that all y'all already know. Right? He didn't say anything terrible. What he didn't do, and this is the scary danger, I think, of what's going on here, is what he didn't do was he didn't kiss the ring. He did not kiss the ring. He did not kiss the ring of the dawn. He didn't do it. And he's not going to. And frankly, because we're all adults here, he doesn't have to. That's fine. Ralph, one of the people at this rally of a couple dozen people, 25, 26 people, said he was content to see Governor DeSantis stating he was against what was happening to Trump, but he wants the governor of the Florida. Excuse me. He wants him to stay governor of Florida. He was doing good. He was doing great things, but we're not so sure anymore. This is the problem with Trump hero worship. Mary Kelly, holding a Trump flag, said she thought DeSantis' remarks were pathetic because he needs to support our president. He needs to say something to take a stand about what they're doing. He did. This is the level of hero worship. This is why this is problematic. Mary, the governor, said what Alvin Bragg was doing was wrong. He said he was wrong. But he's not going to get involved in the president's private legal business. I don't get involved in all that. But what he was doing was wrong. I don't have a warm, fuzzy feeling about Ron DeSantis. I think he could have stood up to the New York DA. You could tell he read from a script from handlers. You can't tell that. That was it. He didn't stand up for anybody. He didn't up for Trump. This is going to be a much viewed video, but it's not going to be a very popular one. He doesn't have to. And neither does anybody else. I really don't understand this throw myself down on the railroad tracks for any political candidate. Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, to throw myself down on the railroad tracks. It doesn't make any sense. It's crazy. Joe Biden. It was the perfect statement. I'm not going to get involved in all this Trump mess, except to say that what Alvin Bragg is doing is wrong and terrible. That's as good as it gets. That's as good as it should get. Because otherwise, it's like Tar Baby. Now you're attached to all of it. And he doesn't want to be attached to all of it. And I understand that. And if you're smart, you will do the same thing. If you're a robot, then unplug yourself for a while. Then reset, possibly. Take another look at it. I'm not campaigning for Ron DeSantis or anybody else. But it bothers the hell out of me that some people are got their blinders on to such a degree. We'll be back right after these messages. So is it okay now, because it was, during the Trump administration, it is okay to talk about the president's...
yeah. We talked about mental health elderly, so let's talk about this guy's mental health.
The president's mental acuity, because there's sometimes where it seems to be lacking. Have you seen...
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it's especially bad. I'm talking about sometimes it's like really bad. Like, have you seen the picture?
I was told not to take any questions.
I was told not to take any questions. They're going to be mad at me.
They're going to be mad at me.
Mr.
President, are you the president, or were you five?
You see, what I want... See, the next question is... excuse me,
I was told to call on... What you call it for NBC? Who's telling you to call on?
That's the question that we ought to be asking. Who's telling you this?
I don't understand why nobody won't ask that question.
Is Jen Psaki actually the president?
Who's telling you to call on these people in the media?
Is Jen Psaki actually the president?
Probably so.
All right, welcome back. We had that conversation yesterday concerning school boards. School and education, that kind of stuff. A new report published by the Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government and House Judiciary Committees shows extensive collusion between the Biden administration and the National School Board Association. Now, on the surface, the National School Board Association sounds like something wholesome and wonderful and apple pie and baseball and Chevrolet, not the socialist organization that they are. The partnership came as part of a drafted letter calling on the Department of Justice to classify parents, parents who went to school board meetings because they were upset about whatever concerning their children, to classify them as domestic terrorists, to classify them the same way that you classify a Timothy McVeigh. Think about that. People, throw these terms around. So you want the dad who is mad that nobody told him that his son was now going by female pronouns, or worse, that his daughter had gotten an abortion and that he wasn't told about it, and it was set up through the nurse at school, and that he's angry about it. You're going to put him in the same category as Timothy McVeigh or the Unabomber. That's what they're talking about. The letter also asked Attorney General Merrick Garland to use the Patriot Act as implemented after 9/11 to go after parents expressing criticism over school lockdowns, critical race theory, and inappropriate sexual content in the classroom. The same way that we went after the terrorists who crashed planes into the World Trade Center and into the Pentagon, and crashed a plane into a field in Pennsylvania. That the National School Board Association wanted Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, to go after parents with the same venom. Think about this. Internal executive branch documents indicate that the Biden administration use of federal law enforcement and counterterrorism sources is an example of a government weaponized against American parents. If the Justice Department performed any due diligence prior to the issuance of the Attorney General's memorandum, it would have understood clearly that and forcefully that the federal intervention was unwarranted, because that due diligence did not occur. And the administration acted out of political motivation rather than for law enforcement reasons. Parents around the country had FBI assessments. So you go to a school board meeting and you're loud. You raise your voice because your 9-year-old is getting exposed to a book in their library on how to give and receive oral sex or anal sex, and you are apoplectic, as any parent should be, right? In their school library, elementary school library, right? And because you are, the federal government, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, will do an assessment on you, a threat assessment on you. So now you have, because your school library at Bridgeview Elementary School has a book in their library about anal sex that your fourth grader can have access to with pictures. You now have a file with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The report, which interim, as the committee continues to investigate, gives a detailed timeline on how the National School Board Association worked with the Department of Justice and the Department of Education and the White House to push for federal law enforcement investigation into parents. The National School Board Association collaborated with the Biden White House to develop the language of the National School Board Association's September 29, 2021 letter to President Biden, urging the use of federal law enforcement and counterterrorism tools, including the Patriot Act, against parents. The National School Board Association shared the draft language of its letter with the White House, which apparently raised no concerns with the reference to counterterrorism tools and the inclusion of the Patriot Act in the letter. The report states 5 days after they sent the letter to President Biden, on October 4th, Attorney General Garland issued a memorandum that inserted federal law enforcement into local school board meetings. Attorney General Garland established a task force, including the Department of National Security Division, with responsibility for enforcing federal counterterrorism statutes, to examine school board related threats, and highlighted the FBI's National Threat Operations Centers to serve as a snitch line for tips about parents at school board meetings. So you are a school board member at, I don't know, Oakfield School District, and a parent from Bridgeview who is pissed about the book on anal sex in the library raises their voice, and you get triggered. You have a number to call. The department's National Security Division, who gets in touch with the FBI's National Threat Operations Centers to make sure that parent is an FBI file. After the letter became public, the National School Board Association apologized, and a number of school districts ditched the organization. Oh, we're sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry that you're mad, and we called you Timothy McVeigh and Unabomber for being pissed about what happens at school with your child. We're sorry. During the testimony on Capitol Hill, Garland has denied any wrongdoing. I didn't do anything wrong. I don't know what you're talking about. And all what we're saying is true. Folks, if a lot of times people say things hyperbolically, like they're coming after our children. Folks, they're coming after your children. And I'm not saying that in any hyperbolic way, in any way, I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not. They are coming after your children. What Joy Reid said on MSNBC 5 years ago is that your children don't believe that your children belong to you. They believe that the children belong to the collective, and they can do whatever they want. We've seen people, teachers, come out and say the quiet part out loud. They don't think that you have the wherewithal to raise children because you are not degreed and you're not a specialist in those areas. All of those are your children that you are responsible for. So they are going to take that from you. If you've not read the beginning of the book Brave New World, you should. We'll be back. If you are a true blue conservative, small businesses are near and dear to your heart. They are the lifeblood of our life and economy. I believe this, and that's why my florist is not a website or phone number. My florist is Blooming Days Flower Shop, Tampa's premier flower shop. At 11618 North Florida Avenue here in Tampa, Florida, and at 6835 State Road 54 in Newport Richey. Call Christine at 813 933 1942 and at 727 232 6900. She can also be reached on the web at www.bloomingdays.com. Well, welcome back. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. You know, I spent 15 years of my life, the good years, the good years, working in schools. So what happens in schools now, it troubles me greatly. It just troubles me greatly because, all the time that I spent working in schools and most of the schools I worked in, it was trying to get parents to be involved as much as possible. Even to the, at some schools, it'd have been great if parents would just in between classes come and just walk the halls. You have to do anything. Just come walk the halls. See what's going on. See what's going on. And that would have explained a lot of what they thought was the over disciplining of some of the children in some of the schools I worked in. Just come stand in the hall, see how your kid and your kid's friends behave in their natural habitat outside of their homes. Hear some of the conversations. Just stand around to give them some sort of view, some sort of perspective of what was going on. That's the level that we wanted. However, now it's just very different. Last month, talked about how a parental group exposed a district in Kansas that was providing students with a, quote, gender support plan. We've talked about these before, that allows students who identify as transgender to keep their gender identity a secret from their parents. How is that going to work out? How is that going to work out? How is it going to be a situation where a kid leaves home and then goes to school and gets this whole new identity that's supposed to be them, but then has to, go back home that night and pretend it doesn't exist? Why in the hell would you put a child through that who is obviously struggling? Several schools around the country have been outed in recent months for implementing similar policies. A new poll released Tuesday found that the majority of voters believe that parents should be involved in issues pertaining to their children's gender identity at school and every damn thing else. The poll released by a parental rights organization, Parents Defending Education, found that 74% of registered voters believe that schools should not help students change their gender identity without parental consent. 74%? So there are 26% who do? In the poll, 71% of registered voters oppose letting schools withhold information about a child's gender identity from their parents. Only 71%? 39% think it's okay? Because here's the problem. If a child is having problems with their gender identity, they have got a psychological problem. They've got an emotional problem that their parents have right to know about. If the kid came to school and they had a cut on their leg that wouldn't stop bleeding, would you not tell the parents? I mean, seriously? If they had some sort of outward physical thing going on, like a bleeding rash on their neck, would you hide that from their parents? Now, this includes 76% of Black voters, 71% of white voters. I told you, white folks, y'all make me crazy. 66% of Hispanic voters, 59% of Asian voters, and 85% of Republicans, and 74% of independent voters, and only 59% of Democrats. In addition, 71% of registered voters support legislation requiring schools to inform parents if their child wants to socially transition. And 39% of people think it's okay if their kid just does whatever the hell they want when they're obviously struggling. And change their gender identity at school. This would include going by chosen name and preferred pronouns. 75% of registered voters in this poll said that they support legislation requiring schools to get parental consent before helping a student change their gender identity at school. The poll sampled 1,600 registered voters between March 15th and 20th and has a margin of error of a lot, in my opinion, of 2.45%. If your kid doesn't feel good in their own skin as far as gender goes, you should know. I can't imagine being a parent who goes, well, can't go through stuff. I don't need to. Yes, you do. Now, because this is why, and I've said this for years, people who follow me for years know that it is amazing to me that people don't think they can do two things at the same time. You can know and not do anything, because sometimes not doing anything is the thing to do, right? Is actually the thing to do. But if you don't know and something happens, then what? Then what? We've been fed this line about better to have a transgender child than a dead one. No, well, what you find is that people who identify as transgender off themselves. So maybe you're trying to prevent that. Earlier this month, House Republicans introduced H.R. 5, known as the Parents' Bill of Rights, to protect parental involvement in education. This legislation gives parents the right to know what's being taught in schools and to see reading materials, the right to be heard, the right to see school budgets and spending, the right to protect their child's privacy, and the right to be updated on any violent activity at the school. You have a say in your kid's education, not government and not telling you what to do. Now, McCarthy said in a remark to the Capitol the day the bill was announced. Here's McCarthy's tweet: "Every parent deserves the right to know what's being taught in the schools and see reading materials, the right to be heard, the right to see school budgets and spending, the right to protect your child's privacy, the right to be updated on any violent activity at school." Our polling shows unequivocally that parents should be the principal decision makers for the education of their children. This fundamental American belief that parents know what's best for their children transcends politics, race, and income. Parents have called on districts to respond to their yearning for transparency and accountability, but to no avail. Caroline Moore, vice president of the PDE, said in a statement, "Parents are looking to the many states across the country, as well as Congress, who are currently taking up the fight for parental rights through legislation at the state and federal level." It couldn't be more fitting that Congress is slated to vote on the Parent Bill of Rights Act later this week, which will codify parental rights in education through legislation and give parents the transparency and accountability that is non-existent at the district level. Now, I'm going to tell you all this, and this is another thing in this video that you're not going to like. A lot of you parents have caused this. When a lot of people like us, like me, said during the Tea Party movement, you get all excited about the presidential race, but that we can't get your ass at a school board meeting to save our soul. We knew that the school board, that they were. We knew that they were after our kids a long time ago, and that wherever the children spend 7.5 hours a day for 180 days, that was going to be the place that needed to be approached first, not the House representatives, not the Senate, not the White House, because the culture is being pushed in schools. Andrew Breitbart, I had a conversation before I did the video with my friend Francie Dupree, which you need to watch. Used to say all the time that politics is downstream of the culture. So being part of the culture is more important, and really one of those proactive moves to changing the political spectrum. And when we asked you to show up at school board meetings, you didn't. You didn't have time. But you came to a Tea Party rally. You spent 4 hours there, but you couldn't spend but you can't spend an hour at a school board meeting. It kind of caused this. And even though they're trying to make you a domestic terrorist now for actually showing up these meetings, you should still keep doing it. You should still keep doing it. Show up at the meetings. Let them know that you're watching. Demand transparency, even if you have to get federal Information Act. Whatever you have to do. Because frankly, children are our future. My name is Willie Lawson. This has been The Morning Report. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. Till we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, I'll take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.